Title: Poor Cowboy married 71-year-old cattle baroness. 7 days later, he was shocked by what he saw. In a dusty sun-baked town on the edge of the Texas plains, a man named Eli Owens stood at the altar. The church bells rang, their sound drifting out over the flat land. His heart raced not from excitement, but from a deep sense of disbelief. Eli was poor. His family had barely enough to feed themselves, much less keep a roof over their heads. And yet, here he was, marrying the wealthiest woman in town. Her name was Ruby McCallister, 71-year-old cattle baroness, who owned nearly all the ranches for miles. She was a woman of means, powerful and respected in the community. To everyone's surprise, she'd chosen Eli, a man with nothing but a good heart and calloused hands. The townspeople whispered, speculating on her motives, but none dared ask her directly. Why him? They murmured, as Ruby's golden ring sparkled in the sunlight. It wasn't love, it was something deeper. Ruby had lived a hard, lonely life. Her eyes had seen too much: the rise and fall of her family's empire, the loss of loved ones, and the betrayal of friends who came for her money. She had never found true companionship, just arrangements, just deals. But Eli was different. She saw in his eyes something she hadn't seen in years: kindness, sincerity, and a willingness to give, without expecting anything in return. On their wedding night, Eli stood in the grand mansion, looking out across the sprawling land that Ruby had built. He felt like an intruder. She had given him the world, but what had he given her? The thought gnawed at him. Was he a charity case, or had Ruby truly seen something in him? 7 days later, everything changed. It was early morning, the sun barely rising over the horizon, when Eli found Ruby sitting in the parlor. Her back was straight, but her hands trembled as they rested on the table. She looked older than she had on their wedding day. The life in her eyes seemed dimmed, as though something heavy had taken its toll on her spirit. Ruby! Eli's voice cracked as he stepped into the room. Ruby turned to him, her lips curling into a tight smile. Eli, there's something you need to see. Her words were soft, yet they carried a weight that made his heart skip a beat. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on the polished wood floor. Ruby stood slowly, her movements deliberate, as if she was preparing herself for something monumental. She led Eli to the back porch, where a large trunk lay. It had been hidden in the corner of the barn, covered in dust and cobwebs. Ruby slowly lifted the lid, revealing the contents inside. Eli's breath caught in his throat. There, inside the trunk, were stacks of letters, old yellowed pieces of paper filled with memories and long-forgotten words. The letters were from her late husband, George McCallister, a man who had passed away many years ago. They were filled with stories of their life together, of love and loss, and of the incredible moments they had shared on the ranch. Ruby looked at Eli with tears in her eyes. I've kept them all these years, Eli. They're my memories of a man I loved deeply, but they also remind me of my own heartache. You see, I married George for the wrong reasons. I needed someone to protect me, to keep the ranch alive. But in the end, I found out it was never about the ranch. It was about having someone to love. Eli didn't know what to say. He had never seen Ruby so vulnerable, so broken. The woman, who had seemed invincible, who had controlled the land with an iron fist, was now just a woman who longed for something simple: love. In the days that followed, Eli began to understand Ruby in a way he never thought possible. It wasn't her wealth that mattered, nor the ranch she had spent her life building. It was the love she had given and wanted to receive. Eli, with his humble ways, was now her anchor, and he realized that he, too, had been seeking something far more precious than any riches. Ruby's acts of kindness were woven into the fabric of their marriage, quiet but powerful gestures of love. She taught Eli about the land, about patience, about loyalty. In return, Eli showed Ruby that kindness didn't have to come with strings attached, that even in the harshest of conditions, there was beauty and simplicity and authenticity. Then, one day, when Ruby was ill, Eli sat by her bedside, holding her hand as the sun began to set. I don't know what I would have done without you, she whispered. He squeezed her hand. We saved each other, Ruby. And it was in that moment, more than any grand gesture or grandiose wealth, that Eli understood what Ruby had really given him. It wasn't just her money or her land, it was her heart. The woman who had once seemed unreachable was now the one he held closest. And the woman who had once feared being abandoned found solace in a love that came without conditions. That as Ruby's health began to fail, Eli promised her one thing that she had never asked for. I'll carry on your legacy, Ruby, not for the money, but for the love you gave me. And in that promise, the final act of kindness was born: a love that spanned years, a kindness that transcended the differences between them. In the end, Ruby's life had been marked not by her wealth or her power, but by the love she gave, and the love she received in return. The ranch would live on, but the legacy of her kindness would live forever in Eli's heart.